Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name's Rodney.
And my name is Zach.
Zach, joining us as always from your quiet home in London. Wait, no, you're not. What are you doing this week?
I managed to... Have you seen the movie Escape from New York? It was kind of like that. Okay. I took a chance to escape London and its impending COVID crisis, even more so than the one was already there, and booked a last-minute flight to Santorini, and now I'm in Santorini, enjoying their complete warmth and sunshine and loveliness, whilst there is basically no one else here. So very, very lucky, as always, being very COVID safe with my masks and my antibacterial, all that kind of stuff, but supporting a local economy that needs it. So reporting in.
I don't know if you saw this, but when I tweeted out something along the lines of, there's fans at the race this week, how great is that? Someone asked where you were sitting, and I was like, that's funny. That's extremely funny. You went to a country where there isn't even an F1 race. Why bother travelling, hey?
I feel like it would be great, though, if there was a race on the island of Thera or Santorini.
Yeah. How big is it? Could you just do a race around the island?
Well, it's funny because it's a caldera, right? So it's kind of half moon shaped because it was a volcano erupted here and like half the island fell into the sea. So it's kind of around the caldera of the volcano. I feel like we could build some nice, maybe like the floating pontoon bridge they have at Albert Park when the race is on. But if you could build a really big one and connect some of the islands up, you could do a great like oval track around Santorini. I'd watch that race. This is the kind of thing that I'm hoping that Liberty Media starts to introduce in future, because if we can race in Vietnam and if we can make up race names every year, now, why not race in Santorini?
And it sounds like there's good elevation there as well if it's a fallen volcano.
Oh, massive elevation, mate. If what you're looking for is elevation, Suzuka style, then you can definitely get it in Greece.
Fantastic. It actually sounds a little bit like something out of Halo or something. Well, I mean, our job is to talk about an F1 race. I assumed you watched the race?
I did watch the race. I chose to watch it on my iPhone. Because
as the director intended.
Yes, as in 720p on the Sky Sports app on my iPhone. I had it in my little jobby tripod and I put it on the little table and I sat out on the porch on the balcony looking over the caldera, as one should when watching an F1 race, with my AirPods in. And the race got so hectic and I was so warm and I'd had 2 cans of beer at this point. And I was like, I can't watch these last 10 laps in this boiling sun, even though I'm seeking shade, as you should do, slip, slop, slap and all that. But I need to really focus here because I'm going to do a podcast on these last 10 laps and probably all other 48 of them, however many there was. So I had to come inside, sit in the cave house. And my partner came in, 15 minutes later. She's like, what are you doing in here? And I was like, I couldn't handle the pressure. I couldn't put up with all the pressure of a possible Daniel Ricciardo podium. So I had to come inside in the cool, dark cave house in Santorini and hold the phone close to my face to really pay attention.
Oh my goodness me. goodness me. This is reminding me of years gone by where I'm at home eating pods, watching F1 on my couch, and you're off in some exotic locale, living it up and just being awesome.
Oh, you're always being awesome too. I just get dragged around Europe, and no, I don't get dragged around. That might get back to my partner, and she wouldn't like that. No, we both...
Someone snip that, send it to her.
Travel around. As I said, very lucky to be here. And
you certainly are.
Very lucky to be talking to you, mate. Maybe we should get into this Grand Prix.
This Grand Prix, which is in Eifel, the noble country of Eifel. Let us speak about the race.
Let us race a bit. I gave him space.
Suck my balls, mate.
Let's hurry up and get out of here. We've got a race to do.
The Eifel Grand Prix, a.k.a. the kind of German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Zach, we're going to be tasking you with doing a 30-second recap of the race. So before we go any further, no more spoilers. Let's sum up the race. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, here's everything you need to know in 30 seconds. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Now, if you paid attention on Saturday, you just would have been like, Valtteri Bottas, he's going to win this race so easily. It's such a great race weekend, gets pole position, and then immediately loses it out on the start. It's like, oh, look, there's Lewis Hamilton. He'll probably just cruise through. But no, Bottas was not having it this week, and he was like, I'm coming right back at you, mate. It's my position. It's my race. Valtteri to Bottas 4.0, and then his engine failed, and that was it. I mean, Lewis Hamilton passed him a little bit later because of a bad lockup, but then that opened the podium up. It was like, oh my god, who's going to get on the podium? Is it going to be Ricciardo? Is it going to be Perez? Ended up being Ricciardo. Verstappen finished second, like always, and then Kimi almost flipped over Williams.
Brilliant job. Very well done.
I do this every time, right? I spend all my time on the first 2 laps, and then I spend 25 seconds on the first 2 laps. Then I'm like, also, the rest of the race happened.
Fine. Everything goes a bit slower when you're on holiday. It's fine. I think you did a brilliant job. 30 seconds is not much. People don't realize. But 30 seconds to sum up an hour and a half, or nearly 2 hours, it felt like, of racing. Whew. You did very well. I don't know where you want to start, but maybe we start with Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri Bottas? I don't know where Valtteri Bottas came from.
Valtteri Bottas.
Valtteri Bottas. A good pole position, an actual solid pole position after his win last race. And like you say, it was looking like Bottas 4.0, 5.0, something like that. And
what version are we on?
What version are we on? And he did provide one corner worth of excitement, one corner that silenced some of the doubters who have been saying this guy can't do it because he got an average start. Hamilton got a very good start. And then going into the first corner, I feel like Hamilton actually broke a little bit later and made it look better than it was, but he was sort of a nose in front. But even though both cars went off track, Valtteri Bottas just said, "We'll not be having any of that. I will be fighting you back." And he managed to reclaim the lead, which was brilliant. And it was exactly what we want to see from whoever the other car is driving against Lewis Hamilton, because we don't see enough of it. The thing I was going to bring up about that was, after the race, there was a side-by-side comparison of Nico Rosberg versus Valtteri Bottas, who have both been at Mercedes as Lewis Hamilton's teammate for roughly the same amount of time. But boy, the numbers really skew in Rosberg's favour so much in terms of race wins, pole positions. We didn't appreciate him at the time.
No, I think that Valtteri Bottas is firmly a number 2 driver, where Nico Rosberg was at Mercedes before Hamilton, and had kind of been number 2. Well, not number 2, but he'd shared a role with Schumacher in that sense when Schumacher was at Mercedes. Maybe shared a focus, I suppose, and Rosberg was kind of going to be the guy, maybe. And Mercedes picked. I'd love to get a Toto Wolff memoir or something for his time at Mercedes at some point. That would be great. But
my daddy years.
I think so. Yes, but I don't think that Rosberg ever thought of himself as number 2. He knew how good Hamilton was, obviously. But I don't think he ever thought he was going to be a number 2 driver. And I don't think that the garage ever thought of Rosberg as a number 2 either. Yeah. So they probably treated him a little bit more fairly than they treat Bottas and Hamilton now. And obviously Hamilton is a better driver now than I think he was then. It seems to say, but I think his racecraft, his mind, like the mental side of his racing is much improved, as you would expect it to be when you know that you are the best driver in the world in the best car with probably the best team around you and no threat to that whatsoever. Valtteri Bottas is not pushing to be number 1, where I think Nico Rosberg and Hamilton had a time when they were both pushing to be equally thought of as the best driver in the world at the best team. Rosberg also always kind of had that, I think, maybe from the outside as well, that kind of he's the German driver at the German team. You know, that was a big double win for them. You get 2 German national anthems when Rosberg wins a race, as opposed to the one when Hamilton does. So, I think it would have been a fairy tale for Rosberg to continue to be successful at Mercedes. But, he won his championship, got out, and left it to Hamilton. And Hamilton is obviously where we're at now. Also, 91 or 92 race wins, equaling Michael Schumacher's record of race wins. And I don't see Lewis stopping anytime in the next 3, 4, 5 years, really. What did you think of the Schumacher helmet that Mick Schumacher gifted Lewis after the race? What did you think of that nice gesture?
It was an unexpected moment. It was a good moment, nice moment. I have to imagine that Mick Schumacher and that helmet were on hand last race and they just didn't get to do the whole handover, but that's unfortunate. But anyway, it also maybe struck me by surprise because I guess I always think, well, they'll recognize that when he pulls one ahead, but they don't seem to do that. They did the same thing with Senna. When he equaled Senna's pole position record, the Senna family presented one of Senna's helmets, and it seems like equal is when you recognize it. My instinct fights against that, and it's like, oh no, why not do it next week when he's actually broken the record? But I guess on the other hand, you get to recognize when the 2 drivers are on the same number. You get to recognize these are two incredible drivers who now share something. But then the week after, say Lewis wins the next race, all of a sudden you're not going to be thinking about Schumacher's win record. Now it is firmly Lewis's record, and he deserves to stand, ahead of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he can give himself a helmet.
He can stand apart from it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think I think that I was struggling with that until you put that together. That makes a lot more sense to me as well. Yeah, there's a moment where they share the step.
But as far as the moment, yeah, I mean, it was fine. They gave him I think it was, I'm not good with colours, it was a red helmet, but it wasn't a Ferrari helmet. It was one of Schumacher's Mercedes helmets, which is also sort of interesting.
Yes.
But fitting.
It is kind of interesting. But fitting, yeah, exactly. And maybe there are, you also wouldn't want to, not to, I don't think there's a negative, this is a negative spin, but hopefully it's not construed this way. There would be special helmets you don't necessarily want to give away.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
So, and if Mercedes were organising it, then maybe it makes sense for it to be a Mercedes one. Did they say he wore it at the German Grand Prix? That could be it as well.
I don't know. Maybe.
Something like that. I can't remember. Maybe I'm making that up. But it was cool. I thought it was nice, and I really liked that Lewis took it up on the podium with him.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
It was really special.
Definitely.
And I think that I quite like it when things catch Lewis a little bit off guard. I don't know if he was 100% ready for it. I think he took it in his stride, and I think we get a little more of the real Lewis in those circumstances, which I really like. I thought he was genuinely grateful and thankful and emotional, as opposed to the yes, I've won and it's great, thanks fans. This was more like, oh my goodness, it really occurs to me, and this is a really nice gesture. So it was lovely.
It's an interesting one when he says things like, I wasn't even thinking about the record. And it's like, how could you not be thinking about the record? It's all anyone's been talking about or thinking about forever. But I guess you don't go into the race with that mindset of I have to win and equal the record. You're just going into it, and you have to be so focused on what you're doing and getting everything right and securing the win that it genuinely, I think, could escape your immediate focus. And you'd just be buzzing. You'd just be running on adrenaline, of course. So you're not sitting back listening to, someone commentating on the race going, oh, look, he's looking really good to break the record or anything like that. You're definitely in your own zone, I'm sure. But yeah, I definitely want to make sure we make a little bit of a moment of this because, Lewis Hamilton, he's bloody going to do it. He's going to get to triple figures at least. Probably not this year. I don't think there's enough races left for him to get there this year, but next year, I mean, boy, it's not a question of when, it's a question of, no, wait, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And
who.
Yes, exactly.
And why.
He's getting pretty close. He's not quite there, but mathematically he's pretty close to more or less locking up this championship as well, which will also bring him up onto 7, equal Schumacher there as well. Of course, he's a lock for next year as well, with the regulations not really changing too much. And then by the time you're on 8, if he can race for another 3 or 4 seasons, there's no reason why he wouldn't be a brilliant chance to get at least one more, if not 2.
Yeah, as you said, with the regulations being locked in, he's definitely on track to hit triple figures for race wins and set a really high watermark. I think that Martin Brundle said this, how high will that watermark be? Which is outstanding. I hope that we see a little bit more challenge, and that was maybe one of the disappointing things from this race weekend, that Bottas is looking good. And I actually think that racetracks like this, where there's opportunities and the cars seemed pretty well balanced against each other, that we were on track to see some really great racing that was going to evolve over the whole race. And because it was extra cool as well, maybe it was easier for the cars to follow behind each other. I actually think we saw some good, long overtaking battles during the race, and they weren't always cut and dry. And drivers were able to come back off the straight. They were able to come back at whoever had just overtaken them and kind of fight a position back. So it's amazing what a real racetrack can do for racing. Funny about that. But yeah, I think that Hamilton showed his... Well, I mean, afterwards, what did you think of Hamilton's comments around... he felt like the Red Bulls were really quick, that he was exhausted, had been pushed really hard by Verstappen at the end. It didn't look like that on paper. No. But you can't argue that Verstappen was there the whole race. The Mercedes didn't skip off to victory once Bottas had retired. And maybe there's something in that one car fails, they tell Hamilton, don't use the crazy engine modes or the upper limit of the engine, please, because we had problems on the other car. But do you think that he's just trying to keep the sport, trying to make sure that people think the sport is interesting, or do you just think he's lying and saying that Red Bull aren't actually, maybe it turns out Red Bull aren't actually that quick?
I think to one degree, that's all. I mean, he's sort of just speaking through his own mental processes in terms of, I'm winning, the threat is coming from Verstappen. And then when someone at the end of the race says, tell me about your race, I mean, that's all he's got to lean on, really. It's like, oh, well, I won. I guess Verstappen was there. There was a late safety car which punched up the field as well. So there's, it's not like he had nothing to do all day. There was even some commentary suggesting like, how come earlier we cleared a car and we had a virtual safety car, but later in the race, another cleared car, and that time we get a full safety car? A bit suspicious. I don't know about that, but no, I mean, I don't pretend to know what Lewis Hamilton's thinking all the time, but I think when he says there was a threat from Verstappen, he probably believes it to some degree. I don't think he's lying. It's just whether we believe it or not, we tend to think of close as being 2 or 3 seconds behind. But for him, it's probably quite different. He's probably worried about what happens. What if I run right at the corner? Has he got enough of a gap that he's going to get past me? What if I have to pit for some reason? Oh my goodness, if he's within 30 seconds, then I'm in trouble. So he's thinking, he's on a different level than we are, that's all. In terms of worrying about things.
I often, after a race, Lewis Hamilton just won 91, 92 race, whatever it was. Sorry, I can't believe I'm forgetting.
91, I reckon.
Yeah, 91.
Well publicised, right. 91.
Yes. Maybe it's because I keep thinking, it's like, but when will he get to 92?
Yes,
tomorrow, whenever it is. But I'm always amazed at how happy the teams sound. And it's just, I don't know, that shouldn't be too surprising. It's a monumental piece of work to get a race win. And so many things have to go right. You have to put so much effort in. But even after the 91st, he was still like, oh, God, guys, yeah, so good. Thank you so much. How amazing to get another race win. What a great race from everybody. And I know you have to be like that, but at the same time, it's not wearing off. And it obviously doesn't. You said before that when Lewis wasn't thinking about the record, this seems to be the same for every single sports person. They all, whenever they ask, did you think about coming into this game that you would break the record for the most games coached, or the most games won, or the most races won, or the most fastest laps, or the most amount of points scored by an NBA player, those kinds of things. And invariably, the sports person always says, no, I wasn't thinking about it.
I'm not a stats guy. I'm the player.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It happens in cricket all the time because there's endless stats and records in cricket.
Yeah.
But every single player is always like, I wasn't thinking about getting that. Unless it's a personal thing, like 500 wickets or something, but never breaking somebody else's record.
That was the only one that I was thinking of, because I do remember Glenn McGrath, when he was approaching, I think it was 500 wickets. They were like, can you envisage how you're going to get to 500? He's like, yep. He was playing against West Indies. He's like, I'm going to knock over the opening batsman. He's going to edge it to first slip. And then Lara, I think it was Lara, was going to come in. Yeah. And I'm just going to knock over his stumps for 500. I was like, oh, bloody hell, I thought about this. And I think it turned out to be something similar to that. Maybe not exactly like that. The other one was Mark Taylor, when he scored 334 after batting for 2 whole days. He finished the second day, and they were like, you're level with Bradman. He was like, fuck, that's good enough. I'm not batting anymore. I'm done. I am absolutely knackered. Let's declare. So anyway, those are the two that came to mind.
That's great. It'd be so funny if Lewis was like, cool, that's where I wanted to be, level with Schumacher. I think I'm done.
I think
Toto Wolff is leaving. I'm becoming team principal, and that's it. It's over. Thanks, everybody.
Anyway, we should probably round out what happened to Bottas, because he did look like he was sort of a challenger, but he did have a huge lockup while he was in the lead, sort of Vettel-esque almost, you could say. Completely locked it up, really ruined it. Like, it was a lockup that went for a couple of laps. I think it's still going somewhere, that lockup. It's so awful. And then he pits, and everyone thinks, oh, he's going to pit for tyres, but he pits and retires because he has a technical problem, which, I don't know, good timing, saving face, I don't know. But that's obviously going to put a little bit of worry into the Mercedes garage as well. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, but then after that, I want to round out the podium.
No, let's round out the podium. I can't imagine why you'd be so excited to get to the podium.
No reason at all. This is the reason I stayed up extra late. Max Verstappen, obviously follows Hamilton home, said he was very happy with P2, said that was about the best he could do on the day, and that's pretty much right. Really just there to kind of, I don't know, challenge the Mercedes, and if he can split them, he usually feels pretty happy about that. And then in P3 and P4, this is kind of where all the action was, Ricciardo versus Perez. Perez was on a different tyre strategy, Mr. Reliable, different tyre strategy. But it looked like he was sort of charging, and then there was a safety car which secured things for Ricciardo, who was on more of a standard strategy, and it secured P3 for him because he got to put on the same tyres as everybody else, and all he had to do was withstand the challenge from Perez after the safety car to kind of just cruise to P3 from there. But, I mean, it did look like Perez was sort of slowly catching, but I think the equation was something like 20 laps, he's 10 seconds behind, and he's closing at 7.7 of a second per lap or something. I was like, that's still not an easy overtake. Still not a sure thing, but he'll probably argue differently. But in the end, it was Mr. Ricciardo on the podium for the first time in what has been 2.5 years since the Monaco Grand Prix, which he won, which is sort of crazy to think that he didn't get another podium that year, and then he's waited a whole other 2.5 years until the next one. Yeah, pretty incredible.
Outstanding. I thought he raced beautifully and has been racing beautifully this kind of last quarter of the season. Renault found some reliability. The car's looking pretty pacey. As everybody keeps saying now, it's like, now do you wish you'd stayed at Renault? And I think that Ricciardo would just happily be like, that McLaren's getting Mercedes PUs, right?
Yes.
The best PU we've seen in a generation. And also has signed a contract because that Mercedes will make the best power unit in the new formula as well. So if you were going to finish your career anywhere, maybe McLaren would be the place to do it. Also, I feel like Fernando Alonso was going to find a way into that Renault team by hook or by crook, regardless of if Daniel Ricciardo was leaving. I feel like Fernando would have found a way into Alpine. And I wouldn't want to be there it would have made a great team, but I feel like, the whole thing would have just been like, oh, now you're part of Fernando, you're number 2 to Fernando. Daniel Ricciardo still has his eye on a world championship, and McLaren will be his last push.
So let me ask you this question, and I'll ask politely if you could give me a quick answer. This was put out there by the Australian Grand Prix Facebook page. Do you think Daniel Ricciardo is the best driver so far this season?
Is he the best driver so far this season? No, I don't. Yes, yes.
I don't think so either. You're saying yes.
I think to take the whole season so far, I think so. So
what are you basing that on?
He's been performing very well. He's had a couple of unlucky circumstances.
And qualified his teammate pretty regularly.
Yep, basically every single time. I think he's probably outperforming the car before the car got better, and I think the car's now a bit more of a match for his skill set. Where he needs it to be a bit better, where he needs to defend or overtake, I think it's there more often, and he's putting together full race weekends. So his qualifying performances have been outstanding. And then he's either keeping pace or improving, like he did this weekend. Qualified 6th, finished 3rd. You can't ask much more from any of these middle pack drivers, and consistently over the last 3-4 races, he's been there challenging. The other option, I think, would be maybe Charles Leclerc. I think he's doing what he did at Sauber, which is the car was junk, and he's consistently in the points, or seemingly in the points, putting performances that should put him in the points. When did he finish this week? I think he finished 7th, and he was running as high as 3rd, I think. Daniel Ricciardo had to pass him at one point. I think Charles Leclerc is having a fantastic season as well. Who would be your performer of the season?
I think it's a bit of a masked result because, you got drivers like Perez and Stroll, who have both been driving pretty well, would have had to sit out for various reasons. We're talking about the same season where Pierre Gasly won a fucking race in an AlphaTauri.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Lewis Hamilton is blitzing the field. Valtteri Bottas has won a couple of races against Lewis Hamilton, who we're all talking about as, one of the best drivers ever. I think there's plenty of contenders. I just feel like to pluck Daniel Ricciardo out as the best of all of them is just maybe overreaching a little bit. That's all.
No, I think that the sport is always a bit romanticized when there's a dominant force, right? That there's drivers down the field. There's so few Formula One world champions and so few race winners, especially in our lifetime, or this period, these last kind of 10, 15 years, that people have been conditioned to think further down the field and be like, there are great racers who will never win a race. There will be guys who there will be fantastic racers from the last 5 years and the next 5 years who will never see a podium. Look, he was here this weekend, Nico Hülkenberg, a fantastic driver.
I was going to bring him up, but I was going to say before we get to that, I want to finish on the Daniel Ricciardo. And speaking of him being romanticized, there is something that's been way overly romanticized, which is the wager between him and Cyril Abiteboul that he's going to get a tattoo, or as David Coulthard calls it.
Now, also a big moment for Cyril. We've got to talk about the tattoo. Apparently, you have an agreement where if you get a podium, he has to get a tattoo, and you get to choose it. Is that real? And what are you going for?
I prepared. What is David Coulthard saying?
Tattoo.
What is that? What is that word?
Tattoo.
You have to translate for me, please. Scottish to English.
Tattoo.
Is he saying the same syllable twice? I don't get it. Is he wearing a tutu?
I feel like as soon as I say anything,
what the hell?
Fuck you. Fuck you. I feel like I'm going to get interrupted at any moment now. Again,
okay.
Yes, I think he's saying tattoo, and maybe that's how it's meant to be. How they say it? Tattoo, yeah.
Tattoo. Tittou.
Tattoo. It's just ratatouille.
Tattoo.
My goodness, I just don't get it. I was listening to that at 1:30 in the morning going, what, DC, I love you, but man, what are you saying?
Oh, God. You know what also makes it worse? The fact that we're talking about it as well, but it's that now everybody's reflecting on the fact that it's been over-talked about.
No, the good thing is now
that
it'll happen. It'll be a story before the next race, and you'll see the F1, they'll send a camera crew, and it'll be a whole package, and then we can all move on and talk about it.
I'm looking forward to seeing the tattoo of the honey badger in Lederhosen.
Ah, interesting.
And with a speech bubble that says, no, he's probably holding a shoe that has a shoe in one hand and a champagne bubble.
Yeah, I was this legitimately what I thought it would be was a shoe with champagne pouring into it, because why wouldn't it be that?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
why wouldn't it be that?
There you go.
Well, I'm glad we won't have to talk about it 300 more times.
Yes, he forgot to do a shoey on the podium, supposedly, and he did one later in his solitary confinement or whatever it was. So anyway, the point is he did one. Chico Perez gets in for fourth. Pretty happy, and he was actually really good. Post-race, there was a clip that went around of his audio where he was like, they were, well done, Chico, P4, really, really good. And he was like, that's great. Thank you so much, everybody. How did Nico go? And they went, oh, really good. He came P8. And he's like, that's great. Awesome. Like, it was actually really nice. They were actually the only team. Here's a fact for you. 9 different teams scored points. The Racing Point were the only team with 2 cars in the points this week.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, should we talk a little bit about reliability in that sense then?
We can do that.
Because it was somewhat surprising, I think, that there was so many reliability issues, because it wasn't a particularly hot day, but I'm surmising, knowing nothing of the mechanics of Formula One cars. It was really cold. Like, did you see the shots of Toto Wolff in the Mercedes garage with his little beanie on? What are the other names for beanies that they use? Different. They don't say the word beanie in the UK. They say a different word. I can't remember what it's called.
I know in Canada they say tuk-tuk, and in Scotland they say
tattoo.
Something like that.
That one caught me by surprise. That's with his beanie on, and looked like he had 3 jackets on. Like he's wearing his dad's jacket, Grandpapa Wolf's jacket. He just looked freezing, and he was all curled up with his arms crossed. And he's like, I'm glad we won. But
thrilled.
Yeah, maybe the cold wasn't great for all the cars. I know that the tires were having trouble warming up, but it just seemed like there was just Norris had power issues. Ocon seemingly retired. They just brought him in. He retired, and then that was kind of it. Seemingly out of nowhere. So maybe the cars just didn't really like the cold. We don't usually race in mountainous Germany in October.
Probably
you don't really
a
do many
reason for it
things
too.
in the middle of October.
It must be. Wait a second. So it's Oktoberfest there, right? In Germany?
Oktoberfest is in September.
Ah, of course. Because why would you have Oktoberfest in October? That's ridiculous.
You're celebrating it's about to be October. They celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. These are the European things.
They're just keen. They're a bunch of keenos.
Yes, exactly. That's the German word for cinema.
And the thing I know about racing in the cold is that racing, that problems that you have racing in the hot, you don't have to worry about them anymore. Probably have other things to worry about. I don't know what they are. Tire pressures, etc.
Yeah, tire pressures. You're going to make sure your hydraulics are hot. I'm sure that's a big problem as well. You get cold fingers.
You don't have to worry about your drinks overheating. That's good.
No, that's true. That is true. The drink. Can I get the drink? It'll be nice and chilled for you. I wonder if the drivers actually feel better after the race because it's cooler. I wonder if they actually, if the cars are actually any cooler for them, or it's still just 60 degrees or whatever it is inside.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's probably toasty.
But yeah, retirement's tough.
Really hard.
weird retirements, and then we had a couple of times the cars had to be pulled off with cranes, but
and the
really,
most spectacular one, though.
Yeah, Kimi driving into it was George Russell.
It was George Russell.
And it's funny because it looks clumsy, but then you see the onboard footage and Kimi is trying to overtake and then just gets a bit of understeer, I think, and tries to correct.
He has to correct, yeah.
And then it's like, oh no, there's a
car there.
Yep. And it's really, like, that's the closest to flipping over I've seen an accident like that in a while in Formula 1. It feels like the cars are too heavily weighted and stuff to make that happen anymore.
Well, I thought you were going to say they were too wide. You always usually bang on about that for a while.
Oh, they're so fucking wide, Rod. Why are the cars
so narrow?
wide?
I can barely see them. Like, they're so narrow. It's crazy.
Should we talk about the other funny one that happened to with Albon getting an overtake done on Kvyat and then just driving in front of him and not really thinking about how long his car was and just taking out Kvyat's front wing? And it was just
because the cars are so wide. You forgot how wide the cars are.
Exactly.
It was clumsy. Yeah, it was very much like Vettel on Leclerc sort of stuff. I don't think. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's rumors right now that Albon, before the race, tested inconclusive for the COVID, and they were thinking, Nico Hülkenberg might be available. So they had Nico Hülkenberg in mind to step in, which is interesting if you think about, well, what are you going to do at the end of the year? You've got Pierre Gasly running around saying, I'm in fantastic form and I'm in great shape to join Red Bull again. But, I mean, it's interesting that they have Hülkenberg on their mind. That's all.
Got Hülkenberg on the brain. Yeah, it's funny him getting these opportunities to race. He's very much top of mind for a few teams.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that Haas are looking at him and being like, hey, you're okay.
Yeah.
You could dump any one of these idiots at our team.
P20 to P8. We're always in P20. We would love to convert that into P8, please. We'll take P9. We'll take anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hülkenberg finished above Grosjean, and Grosjean got a point, which is nice for him. 2 points, in fact.
Good on you.
So, it's fun. I love seeing Grosjean and Giovinazzi in front of Vettel. You know, two customer Ferrari teams in front of the works Ferrari, with Kimi Räikkönen just behind Vettel at 0.6 of a second as well. I mean, Sebastian Vettel. But you must, if you are Haas, you must be looking at two old Force India drivers, Perez and Hülkenberg, just being like, can I just slot those guys into this nice American Haas team? Like, they're both better than Hülkenberg and Magnussen. Yeah. Put them in there. Like, it would be a no-brainer. And neither of them would be asking, I don't think, too much in compensation. I think they both probably bring good sponsors. Like, what sponsors does Grosjean bring that like Renault/Alpine aren't already bringing to the sport at this point, right? That they, you know, what French brands would they bring to Haas? I can't imagine. So, and Magnussen, I couldn't even name any of the big brands that he would be bringing in. But we know that Perez brings big sponsor money, and Hülkenberg would be good for them as well. I feel like that would be the perfect driver lineup for them. So,
really would. Well, maybe we've spoken enough about the race. Maybe it's time to move on to Fantasy Focus.
Do you have the race up?
I do. I have the league. Well, I have the league and the race up. So
you have both.
I can handle both. I can handle one. I don't know if you're looking at a screen with it on it, but
I'm looking at my iPhone screen with the league. So why don't you do the race?
I can do the race. We'll do the podium in third position this week. This is awkward. Team Blue and Gold by Lee Boy O'Donnell. In second position, Tangelo Racing by Tony Saint. Only 1 point between those two. And top of the league for this race, Lincoln the Naughty Dogs, brackets O'Donnell, which is, I guess, I don't know, related to Lee Boy. Maybe he's got two teams. I don't know. A couple of points clear. I want to call out a very special mention to the team in P7 for this race, Team Amplified Ducks Racing by manager R.W. Gordon. What the heck's going on there? I did really well.
What has happened there? Have you?
I told you I was going to make some changes.
Management?
I made all the right changes, baby.
Can you give me a quick? Give me one change that you made that you think made the big difference this week.
Well, I mean, let's just say out of the top 5 drivers, 3 of them were mine. So there you go. Pretty nice.
Shit. Well, I bet you didn't have Hülkenberg in your team this week, which I did because Stroll didn't race. Can we just quick? I mean, we can't let we do a Formula One show that is the kind of funniest, slightly more cultural, funny side of the race, right?
Yeah.
Surely, I mean, if I was a Formula One driver, I wouldn't want my team principal telling everyone that the reason I couldn't race this weekend is I couldn't get off the toilet.
So it's like a punchline from a Roy and HG bit.
Yeah.
so good. They have spent 40 years making jokes about players having gastric, and all of a sudden, it happens.
Poor Lance. I mean, it must be shattering as well. I mean, porcelain shattering, but it must be, it must be rough. Imagine just being like, if I hop in that car, I'm going to shit myself. I'm going to have to tell them. I'm going to have to tell my trainer and my boss. I'm sorry, I can't come to work today. I'm shitting myself. On the toilet
as the seconds tick down to FP3, he's like wringing his hands through his hair going, I can't pull my ass off this toilet because if I do, it's going to go everywhere. You're going to have to get back in there.
Do you reckon he had his phone on him? He was WhatsApping the team principal. He's like, nah, it's no better. I'm still in here.
He's like, I think I'm feeling a bit better. Oh, no, can do.
So, rough.
And apparently he's had it since post-Russia, which is 2 weeks ago. I mean, the poor guy, like there must be, his stomach lining must be just ripped to shreds or something.
Yeah, well, something's ripped to shreds, definitely.
Bloody hell. Well,
I hope
do you want to run us through the league? Run us through the league results and get us away from this?
Well, speaking of, this is maybe what Stroll's, he's probably got some gross genes after this weekend. Funnily enough, Team Gross Genes racing in third there, George Digby Smith on 1,563 points. Ipithus has risen one position, taking Gross Genes' second spot to rise to second, 1,564 points. And Romeo e Giulietta from Vincitore, 1660, a nice round number points at the top there, but it's still, Rod, is it close up there? I feel like maybe Romeo dropped a few points this week, still enough to stay in first. But also, did you say it was Team Blue and Gold won this race this weekend? Has risen to fourth, up 2 spots. So still incredibly tight down there, 1559.
Just going down on the first page because I can see you because you're on the first page. You're up one spot as well into 19. You're into the top 20 clear. Of position 20.
I know that I as well.
Despite having a good race, I'm still way back down there in the back markers. But anyway,
I need 50 points, I think, to get myself up to
measly 50.
10th. Yeah, maybe 60. I think it's actually 60 points. So, I'm chasing. Next thing is get up to that 1,500 points and see where we're at then. But, yes, I'm coming after you, Spin Master Vettel.
See if you can do it. There's going to be no glory for me in the fantasy, so maybe there'll be glory in this week's Super Quiz.
We will accept a couple of questions. Should one only win one? Would one want to have won that one in round one?
Can you repeat the question?
Don't know why there'd be glory for me. You're the one who's going to be answering the questions, but someone may appreciate the wonderful quiz that I've crafted. Zach, this week we're doing a super quiz. Nico Hulkenberg was impressive this week as a super sub, and that means it's time for a super quiz. I will give you a time when one driver subbed in for another one, and I want you to tell me why the original driver had to sit out. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So if I said to you in 2020, Hulkenberg replaced Perez, the reason was... you would say COVID. If I said in 2020, Hulkenberg subbed in for Stroll, and the reason was, you would say an exploding asshole.
Yes,
so
there we are.
That's how you play the game. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions for you. Are you ready to go?
Yes. I also love that you had so many questions based around this that you could even give up 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly right.
The explainer. This is
pretty
great.
Good. When you start researching this, you realize most of the time it's like, oh yeah, well he sat in because he was injured. It's like that happens so often, and that's so boring. So I've tried to keep that to an absolute minimum. But the other good thing about this is, even if you've never heard of the drivers or you don't remember, you can make up something funny. So there's always
just give the reason. Yeah,
exactly.
So no pressure. Just be funny.
So let's go with question number 1. In 2006, Robert Kubica was called up by BMW Sauber to sub in for their driver, former Formula One world champion Jacques Villeneuve. Why was Villeneuve not racing?
Oh, why was Villeneuve not racing? I feel like I can't remember. But was it because he had just had a baby?
No, unfortunately, he was the one being the baby. In the middle of the season, just rage quit the team, rage quit the sport, right in the middle of the season. Just left them all high and dry. Stay classy, Jacques.
Oh, Jesus. Jacques Villeneuve. Does people like Villeneuve? I suppose so.
I feel like he's quite universally hated, but anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next year, Mr. Robert Kubica, he missed a race himself, and he was subbed in when the team brought in Mr. Sebastian Vettel, youngster Sebastian Vettel for the US Grand Prix at Indianapolis. So, Zach, why was Kubica not driving in the US Grand Prix that year?
I feel like it would be injury. But did he have a crash the previous week?
Oh, you've only gone and got it. That mega, as the kids say, that mega crash that he had in the Canadian Grand Prix. He was still recovering from that. So bring in youngster Sebastian Vettel. Very well done.
Thank you.
You're on fire as far as Superquiz goes. Getting one right, that means you're on fire. Okay, let's keep going. In 2012, Jerome D'Ambrosio subbed in for Romain Grosjean during the Italian Grand Prix. What was the reason for Romain Grosjean being out of action for that race?
He had a cycling accident. I'm sure he was cycling around home and he just missed a gutter.
Cycling at home.
Yep, around his home in Monaco, and just missed a low gutter. He thought he could get on the curbs there, but actually turns out on a road bike that doesn't work, and he head over the handlebars and hurt his wrists.
So much better than what we actually did, which was he was actually suspended following a huge crash at the first lap of Spa, and there were a few other incidents, and they told him, sorry, you have to sit out a race because you've been a naughty boy, earning him the nickname the first lap nutcase.
This was before we all knew the wonders of Daniil Kvyat, who hasn't done this.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Romain Grosjean was the man.
True. While we're speaking of the Belgian Grand Prix, in 1991 at the Belgian Grand Prix, team owner Eddie Jordan was forced to call in the services of one Michael Schumacher to sub in for Bertrand Gachot. Why did Eddie Jordan need a driver for that race?
Gachot. He was a no-show Gachot, turns out.
True. Why?
Why? He couldn't afford to pay his wages. So the guy was like, you know what? I'm not coming unless you pay me. Was that why? I should know this. This is important.
No, unfortunately, Gachot got into a fight with a London cab driver and got locked up, and he was in jail and could not race in Belgium.
Really?
It's very true.
Amazing. See, they say that Formula One is boring these days. But
I know. Classic Eddie Jordan as well somehow. All right, we've got one left. 1988 French driver Jean-Louis Slessard subbed in for Nigel Mansell at McLaren, but why did he do that?
Nigel Mansell had so many beers. He's a big guy. He thought he could handle them. But then it was just like, oh, you know what? Oof. I think I can make the race today. I'm just going to stay in bed, actually, and watch it on the iPad. The SkyPad. So, yeah, hungover. Nigel Mansell.
I think Sky would have even existed then. For some reason, I imagine Nigel Mansell, when he was born, just came out holding a can of Fosters for some reason. I don't know why.
Did he have the moustache then as well?
Probably, yeah, I imagine so. And a similar physique.
He's never tasted the foam of a beer. He's never tasted it. It's always just got corn in his
moustache. He gets it all over his face and his racing suit and just, he doesn't fuck around. No, unfortunately, you're incorrect. Nigel Mansell had chicken pox.
What?
Schlesser went on to hit one of the McLaren drivers, and as he was being overtaken, he hit the other McLaren driver, and that led to a Ferrari victory. And that was the only race that season that McLaren didn't win. So he spoiled what could have been a clean sweep that season by the one team. What a guy.
Shaluza,
surprisingly, never raced in F1 again. I can't imagine why.
Yeah, because they're a superstitious lot, Formula One, and they would have been like, nope, definitely not.
True.
No way. Do you think that Nigel Mansell, because he came out a fully grown man at birth, he didn't have chickenpox because he was never really a child? Because you traditionally get chickenpox when you're a child, right?
What a good call. I mean, rather than saying he was born a fully grown man, maybe he was just always a baby his whole career. Like, it's not even like Benjamin Button. It's just like a nothing. It's just like you're just constant baby. You're always
constant baby. That's my new indie rock band, Constant Baby.
He's gonna love us. Someone send him the show. He's gonna be so pleased that we're honouring his legacy like this.
Another Formula One driver we won't be able to get on as an interview.
Damn. Well, I'll scratch him off the list. Zach, that's the end of the Super Quiz. You got all the ones right that I had earmarked secretly as the real ones. So well done.
Oh, thank you so much.
You nailed it. What have we done? Well, 45 minutes. It's pretty damn good, I think. Zach, I want you to wrap it home. Bring it home by rapping for us. Your final thought.
My final thought. What was my final thought? I was going to say, and people are going to hate us because we rag on the Sky Sports Formula One commentary, but I was like 4 minutes late watching the start of this race. So I missed 4 minutes late. I missed the start of the race. So I had to catch up on the first lap in the highlights. So I missed basically David Croft not getting any names of the drivers right at the beginning, not sure who to say who was winning or who had overtaken who, and just had a really troubling and also low energy start to the race. And he was lights out and away we go, and just didn't get anybody's name right for the next 5-10 seconds. But I won't pick on the woeful duo of Martin Brundle and David Croft, who I'm sure are absolutely lovely gentlemen. Just it could do with some slightly better commentators. No, what I was going to say is that I was just kind of glad that we were back at, in Germany at the Nürburgring, right? It kind of feels good and right. And that's randomly one of these traditional tracks that you would always just thought would be part of Formula One. And I think it was a sad state when Formula One moved away from these things because those tracks couldn't make money from, even though a sport that was making a huge amount of money anyway. And it just, isn't it weird that in a year when the sport is probably making way less money than it ever has before, we're going back to all of these tracks that had been lost from the calendar, and now they're all back. They're all here, and we're racing in all these kinds of weird places and doing all these weird things around Europe. I don't know, I can't really understand how the sport can get itself in such a way where so much of its tradition and history moves and disappears and is lost. It's almost like the sport got too up itself and was almost too good for these things. And maybe that's why, and I mean, that sounds very Bernie Eccleston, doesn't it?
It does.
But yeah, wouldn't you rather race in Germany than Russia every year? Surely.
100%. I'll race multiple times in Germany before I go to Russia. Thanks very much. I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think part of it was before everyone was like, you need us more than we need you. But now, because of 2020, the table's been flipped very much. Yeah, good one. No, I agree. I will have to go and have a look at that opening lap because I don't remember it being a name soup, but any opportunity to savor David Croft making an ass of himself, I'm for it.
And making it sound way worse than it was. I mean, he just couldn't get Valtteri Bottas's name out of his, couldn't say it properly.
Actually, that does ring a bell.
Yeah, he was like, Vettel, Valtteri, Bottas, and it's like, it's already happened, mate. It's gone.
Did he say Valtteri? I feel like he said Valtteri Bottas one point, maybe?
Might have said Valtteri Bottas.
Don't know.
It could be that. But it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Yeah, one job, man. The first lap is meant to be full of energy, and he just kind of lights out and away we go. And here's Valtteri.
He's probably thinking about how well Ricciardo was going to do and how Cyril Boutour was going to get up. That's probably what was on his mind. I promise I'll put the soundboard away for next week.
No.
I'll bring a final thought to the table. This week, or even today, maybe it was today. Let's say it was. I listened to the appearance of Sebastian Vettel on I want to say it's the Behind the Grid podcast, the one that everyone does. They do a couple now these days. Beyond the Grid, yeah, that sounds fine. An interesting look at him as a person, and I think the producers seem to have really gone into it in a really opinionated way, in the sense of we want, no one knows anything about Sebastian Vettel. You don't have social media. You're notoriously secretive and private. And I think if we're going to have a chance to talk to you, we're going to make it, we want to unpack some layers. We want to actually get to some depths. And who are you? And what do you like? What turns you on? What do you like doing? All the rest of it. What makes you happy? What do you do for fun? All that kind of stuff. And I think also the interviewer has personal history with Vettel, and they hung out a bunch when he was a young driver and did stuff. So a lot of it is like, do you remember when we did this? It was crazy. You did that thing. So that side of it is good. The downside of it, I would say, is that they don't really, it's a very soft interview. It's a real puff piece, and they don't ask him, there's not a single hard question put to him the whole 1 hour or whatever. So that side of things is a bit disappointing, but if you feel like you want to know who Sebastian Vettel is, this is available. You can go and listen to it. And then, I don't know, it might open your mind in some way. May not. I don't know. But I did, and I thought it was interesting, and I had that thought about it. And that's the last one that I'm going to have.
What an interesting career arc, right? To go from the young upstart, incredibly talented wunderkind.
You talking about me?
Sorry. No, yeah, well, of course. Yeah. This is, I thought it was, if anybody was going to be the wunderkind in this relationship, it's probably me. But no, turns out that's not true. And it's you. And, you know, makes this great start. Impetuous talent you can't ignore. Comes into Red Bull and half the world loves him and half the world doesn't because of that impish nature of him, but he's so terribly good and Australians can't like him because he's multi-21ing his way over Mark Webber, and that's so frustrating. Does poorly, seems to crack the shits, leaves, goes to Ferrari, has a redemptive arc there because people are like, well, he seems much more chill, he's doing okay, we want to see Ferrari winning, that's all good, he seems like it was a nice break because he wasn't a child anymore, he seemed to just magically turn into a man. You know, it's just kind of, you're young until you're not. And then he was just like a grown-up dad. And now he's just back to grumbling no good and is almost a villain again. But because there's no social media presence and he doesn't seem to want to take it out on anybody, and he doesn't do a lot of interviews and stuff like this, and he's not really rising when people ask him, like, oh, you've spun again. He's like, yeah, that's racing. It happens. Oh, well, something's wrong. It wasn't great, and we'll come back next week. And you're like, oh, where's the anger or whatever? It's just not really there. It seems like the fire's gone out with Sebastian Vettel. So it's a really weird career now. It's just kind of fizzling slowly, which not even like Kimi Räikkönen is more interesting to me as a racer, and his career has been simmering along now seemingly for 10 years. You know, 13 years, right? Since he once won a world championship.
That's the other record that was broken this week. Was he's now the most experienced F1 driver with 323 races.
And he's currently negotiating another contract. They've offered it to him. He hasn't said yes yet, but he's going to be 65 or something next year, whatever it is. Maybe he envisions he'll be racing with one of his children at some point at AlphaTauri or whatever. Alfa Romeo or whatever they're called by that point. They'll just be back to Fiat racing or something by then. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel. I don't know how people. I think people just feel ambivalent about him now, right? People just probably don't care. It's just a guy.
I did feel listening to the interview that there was a sense of he's going to become a bit more anonymous. So if that's going to be the story, let's not talk so much about, hey, how did it feel when you won the 4th world championship? Was it as good as the first one? There was literally nothing like that. It was all about getting to the deeper levels. There wasn't even anything like you just mentioned, multi-21, getting petulant, spinning all the time. Not a single question about anything even remotely close to that. It was just all personality. So, I mean, I wonder if there's a little bit of narrative writing there to be like, let's shape you into the guy who's a content dad who still has a bit of an edge, and then he's in the midfield looking to rebuild with another team and bring them back to the front. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, look at the energy there was when Kimi Räikkönen came back to Lotus, Renault, whatever they were at that point was Lotus.
From me, huge energy.
Yes, huge.
So much energy.
You were the rising sun of the energy at that point.
Yes.
And then Fernando Alonso coming back to Renault. I mean, if Sebastian Vettel came back to AlphaTauri or whatever, or any like Red Bull or anything, there wouldn't be that much celebration. If he went away for 3 years and then was like, I'm coming back to see the team through a new period or whatever it was, or, you know, start a new team and I'm going to drive for them for a year or two, I don't think anybody would be like, oh my God, it's Sebastian Vettel, one of the greatest racers of all time. Amazing. I can't wait. Like, we're going to be so excited. It's just kind of like, what's he going to do?
You'd be more excited to get Ricciardo.
Yeah. Well, we don't even know. I wouldn't even know what Sebastian Vettel's racing style is. Like, I couldn't even tell you, like, what it is about his ability that makes him so... I actually just think he's uninteresting. I can't believe I've talked about it for this long and that I kept bringing it up at this point. Like, he's just... There is nothing about him that I think the sport will miss when he's gone. And it's amazing that Fernando Alonso and Kimi Räikkönen have managed to keep this level of excitement about their brands so long, considering they both have something very similar, which is they won world championships very early in their careers, years and years and years and years and years ago, and then basically did nothing after that. Sebastian Vettel has kind of the same, but has done nothing as well, and people really don't care.
I get the feeling like his inner circle will miss him in the way that you're talking about. But yeah, for the fans, I mean, it seems even that the German Grand Prix, the German fans, that the attendances have been down, and they're after Schumacher, Vettel comes along and they were like, yeah, we're just not really feeling you, sorry, mate. So
wrong team.
Yeah, it's an interesting insight. He's the unlikable man. But anyway, maybe we'll see what happens at Aston Martin when it comes along. See how he looks in green. We might change our mind.
Yeah.
Zach, I think we've done a fantastic job making a show out of all of this nonsense that we talk. When are you heading back? Are you going to be back? Are we going to be able to do a shakedown next week, or are we going to give it a miss?
Yeah.
Don't mind either way.
We'll be able to do a shakedown. I'll be back in London town.
You'll be back.
Friday,
All right,
Saturday, one of those days, and then I'll be totally
next
back.
week we'll do shakedown number 3. Oh,
Is
we didn't
there
get
no
an
race
email.
on next
I'll
week?
read it. Bloody hell! I don't think there's a race on. No. I'm pulling my phone out anyway. I'll also confirm that. I think it's another week off. Before Portimao, where we race in
Well, this is weird.
Portugal,
to go have a race week off,
race next weekend.
week off. Huh. Then we're in
exactly right.
Portuguese.
Speaking of shakedown, we did get an email, so I'm going to read this one quickly. During shakedown number 2, I mentioned I was looking at news apps, and someone Paul wrote in to say, was listening to shakedown number 2, heard you talking about news apps. I use one called F Reader. So it's one word, starts with F and then Reader and then one at the end. Not sure if this is on the Apple world. He really likes it, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, thanks for continuing to produce an awesome podcast, entertaining, factual, opinionated, yet restrained somehow. That's something that I thought was a very interesting insight, because I think they were opinionated but reasonable. That's how I would put it.
Yeah, I think
agree?
that, we're a commonly influenced on each other.
There you go. There you go.
If we both thought the same thing all the time, it would probably be totally tornado out of control. But yeah, any of my far out thoughts, you ground me, and I think I do the same for you.
I think I do a good job of bringing you down to earth when you need it. That's the service I offer to you.
Yeah, and I pay through the teeth for it.
Very good. All right, Zach, time to boot it home. You can go back to your holiday, start back enjoying some sunshine, or go for a walk, or do whatever you want to do. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with an episode of Shakedown, and then it'll be what do they call it? The Portuguese Grand Prix, I suppose, in Portimao. Until then, though, my name's been Rod.
My name's been Zach.
I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Give it a rip.
Oh, yeah. Turned a nah into a yeah. Classic Australia.
Oh, yeah, no.